I want to ask you a question tonight in this 3-minute devotional. If you have young kids now, do you read them a story often before they go to bed? Or maybe if your kids are older like mine, did you read them stories when they were kids at different times? I know my wife often reads stories to my grandkids right now, and to see their eyes light up and to see their interest piqued, it's amazing if you really pay attention how much that draws them in. And so my question to you tonight, and the title of this devotion is Inspire People with Stories. Inspire with Stories. In fact, just recently I sat down with a young lady from my church, and she had a lot of questions about faith and about Christ, and I was giving her all kinds of details in Scripture, but then she asked one of my favorite questions. She asked, why do you believe? Why do you give your life to Jesus? And that's where I can go into my testimony. We should always be prepared, if we are followers of Jesus, a short description of why we believe. It's not because of Scripture, it's not whatever. And I shared how I grew up in the church. I walked away from God. I met my wife. She brought me back to the church and to God. And I rededicated my life to Jesus. And it just made all the difference in the world. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I was able to share this story with her. In fact, we see from Peter, in 1 Peter in our New Testament, 1 Peter 3:15, he says, but in your hearts, revere that Christ is Lord. So know that Jesus is the Lord. And always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks. So are you prepared when you're asked? Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you, to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, meaning don't hit them over the head with the Bible. Don't give them a ton of facts and all this. Tell them in a way that this happened to you. They can't say, that's not true, or I don't believe that, because it's your story. It happened to you. And so I want to challenge you when you're doing your day-to-day job. See, I'm in sales, and I've used stories so often. There's so many times that I've had success stories from certain doctors' offices that our products have helped somebody or made a difference in somebody's life, that I can use that in another office and say, this is happening to them. I don't know if it will happen to you, but I've seen this work, and it almost always grabs their attention. If you hear me preach, I almost always start my sermon with a story, and oftentimes I end it with a story. Because when you're in a public setting and you're hearing a talk, how many times you see people drone out, but as soon as the speaker starts giving a story, the ears perk up. You want to know what's happening, what's going to happen in the story. So I'm going to challenge you. Inspire with stories. If you're in sales, in whatever business you're in, at home, if you're wanting to influence somebody, use stories because they're authentic and they're powerful. And one of my favorite books I've just reread called Talk Like TED from Carmine Gallo. And it's an incredible book on public speaking, looking at all the great TED Talks. And that's where I'm really inspired to use stories. And I'll leave you on this quote that he says, storytelling is not something we do. Storytelling is who we are. It's a piece of us that we're sharing with others. Have a great night.